Welcome to Accessible Art History, the podcast, the best place for art history lovers or anyone that is curious. My name is Annalisa, and I'm here to share an incredible work with you. Just a quick reminder before we get started. All sources and images will be posted on the Accessible Art History blog. You can find the link in the episode description as well as on our Instagram at accessible.art.history. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get started. Welcome back to Accessible Art History, the podcast. Last week, I laid the foundation for Impressionism with Manet's work, Olympia. Now, I'm going to discuss a piece that many have believed is the perfect representation of the period. The Luncheon of the Boating Party by Pierre-Auguste Renoir, painted in 1880, depicts a bright, happy snapshot of life. So to learn more about it, then keep on watching. This scene takes place on a beautiful, sunny day. A group of well-dressed people are sitting and eating lunch. Small groups interact with each other while enjoying a luscious fare. The group is composed of both men and women, people that Renoir knew in real life, something I'll discuss in a little bit. The colors that the artist chose are all bright, vivid shades. This helps convey the idea that this is a moment of happiness in the otherwise chaotic world. As with many Impressionist artists, Renoir was a big proponent of painting from real life, so he based his painting off of an experience he had at a local Parisian restaurant. It is called Maison Fournier, and it is located on the River Seine. Fun fact, it's still operating to this day. Renoir and his friends love meeting here for meals. In fact, he was quoted as saying, "You can find me at any time at Fournier. There I was fortunate enough to find many splendid creatures as I could desire to paint." By painting a scene of regular people enjoying the pleasures of life, Renoir was feeding a revolution. For centuries, art had only been about the great figures from the Bible or mythology, about the wealthy, noble, and royal figures. With the rise of realism, just a generation or two before Renoir, ordinary people began to be shown. However, as I discussed in last season, they were shown in the guise of manual labor, little or no relief. Renoir and the other Impressionists flipped this and showed the elements of what made everyday life beautiful. To showcase this change, Renoir used people from his own life as models in the work. For example, the woman holding the dog is named Eileen Chergot. She's a young dressmaker that Renoir would marry a decade after this work was painted. Charles Eufrisi, the man wearing the top hat facing away from the viewer, was an art historian and collector. The woman drinking from the glass is named Ellen André. She was a famous actress. Finally are Louise Alphonse Fournier and Alphonse Fournier Jr., the two people wearing straw hats. They are brother and sister. Their father owned the restaurant. Next, we're going to dive into the Impressionist elements of this piece. But first, let's take a quick break. Hey there, my name is Annalisa, and I'm the founder of Accessible Art History. As a part of my content offerings, I produce a podcast. For the first several seasons, I will be discussing 50 objects that shape the history of Western art. From prehistoric cave paintings to contemporary art, I'll be covering it all. The podcast was designed for everyone, from the casual couch historian to a museum's expert. It all fits within the larger mission of Accessible Art History, to create a space for art history lovers, students, and anyone who is curious to explore all periods of art history and human creation. New episodes drop every Monday on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure to follow the Instagram page for all updates at accessible.art.history. Alright, now that we're back, let's dive into this piece's Impressionist elements. The first and most obvious is the fact that Renoir sought to capture a single moment, the impression. It was the best way to preserve the feeling of an exact point in time so that it could live on forever. The second element is the sketched-in brushstrokes. This was commonly seen throughout Impressionist art, also speaks to the fleeting moment, as the artist had to work quickly to capture it. Finally are the human elements of the work. We see people laughing, talking, eating, and drinking. They are tightly composed so the viewer doesn't miss a single moment of the action. In this case, the group is outside, enjoying the fresh air. Many Impressionist artists advocated the practice of painting in plein air, as opposed to being stuck inside in a stuffy studio. Unlike a lot of works I've covered on this podcast, The Luncheon of the Boating Party was beloved by critics from the moment it was debuted. It was first displayed a few years after Renoir painted it in 1882. The art critics considered it fresh, but not bawdy, and one of the artist's best work to date. When the Philip Gallery acquired the work, the curator stated, The Phillips Memorial Gallery is to be the possessor of one of the greatest paintings in the world. It will do more in arousing interest and support than all the rest of our collection put together. Such a picture creates a sensation wherever it goes. Pierre-Auguste Renoir is one of the most beloved artists of the Impressionist era, and pretty much all of art history. He was born on February 25, 1841, in Limoges, France. His father was a tailor who moved the family to Paris when Renoir was 3 to find more work. The family settled near the Louvre, exposing Renoir to art and culture from a very young age. Beside his obvious artistic talents, the young Renoir was also a talented singer. At the age of 13, he left school to pursue an apprenticeship in a porcelain factory. This allowed him to save up enough money to attend art school. As a young artist, he worked in Impressionist circles, but was quite poor. There were even times he couldn't afford paint. When Renoir did have the funds to create works, the Salon approved of his pieces. However, the tumultuous Franco-Prussian War stalled his career. At the first Impressionist exhibit in 1874, Renoir displayed 6 works. This is what helped to launch his career. In 1890, he married Aline Victorine Chergot, a dressmaker 20 years his junior. The couple was relatively happy, and they had 3 sons together. All 3 of them followed their father into the arts. Throughout his career, Renoir painted thousands of works. Critics stated his most recognizable theme was a feeling of warm sensuality. Pierre-Auguste Renoir died on December 3, 1919. The Luncheon of the Boating Party is an extraordinary piece of art that captures the best parts of life. It reminds us the beauty of both life and the human relationship. Make sure to tune in next week when I wrap up Impressionism with Monet's Rouen Cathedral series. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Accessible Art History, the podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at accessible.art.history for updates and keep an eye out for our next episode. They drop every Monday on your favorite podcast platform.